first speakers today. They are coming directly from the Netherlands this morning, and while our morning here in San Antonio, their afternoon in the Netherlands, and of course, for all of you all over the world in different time zones, probably evening for several of you. They're going to be discussing agile business transformation, governing agile change with just enough architecture. And I'm very excited to welcome Tom de Ridder and Jelle Visser with us. Tom is a pre-sales consultant and founder at Value Blue. He enjoys getting the most out of enterprise architecture collaboration platform Blue Dolphin, working with potential customers and existing customers to show them how Blue Dolphin can improve the EA practice on both strategic and the operational level. He is joined by Jelle Visser, who is the Chief Commercial Officer at Value Blue. Jelle strongly believes that enterprise architecture should be a collaborative effort to deliver value in an agile world. With his prior experience in co-founding multiple startups, he believes EA should be an enabler for an entrepreneurial mindset within larger organizations. Jelle has been shaping the commercial proposition and teams for Value Blue for the past 7 years. Tom and Jelle, what a pleasure to have you with us. We very much look forward to your insights and presentations today.
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you, Jose. What a great introduction to start with. So let's start off and go ahead right away without further ado. Jose already introduced it, so I will skip that part and I will directly jump in, accelerating your business transformation with just enough architecture. We start out with a little bit of background about Value Blue and who we are. So Value Blue was founded in 2011. In 2011, we were a consultancy company doing enterprise architecture assignments at our customers. But what we found is that every time we came to a new customer, the information that we needed to do enterprise architecture was very hard to find. It was very often siloed. It was very often not greatly documented, but it was there, but it was in the heads of people and in a load of Excel files. Took us a lot of time to prepare for our assignments and to assemble all the information. And then when we finished our assignments, all the information was basically thrown out of the window. And the next project team starting up another project started the assembly of information all over again. And that was the point where we thought that can be done smarter. And that's when we introduced Blue Dolphin, and how we transformed from a consultancy services company into an enterprise architecture tooling vendor. We've seen great growth in the past few years, opening offices in Europe, in Utrecht, in Asia, in Hong Kong, and in New York in the US. And currently have over 150 customers, joined the Magic Quadrant for Enterprise Architecture tools 2 years ago, and hopefully we'll be there this year again. So what do we focus on? What we see is that today's organizations, they struggle with business transformation, and it's due to fragmented perspectives. Each organizational silo has its own perspective on both how things work now, as well as how they should be working to reach the organization's business goals. But that's not the only thing. It's also about the data quality. So once information is found, there are so many mistakes in that information to plan your transformation, that it leads to limited opportunities to assess the current situation of the organization and to mistakes in building the future state of your organization. So what do we offer? Very shortly, we offer a full SaaS solution for CXO architects and all the people they are working with to plan, collaborate, and manage their transformation process based on actual data insights. So why do organizations actually want to change? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but there's external drivers. Think about the expectations of your customers, wanting a new app, wanting a more direct experience when doing business with you. New market entrants, think about fintech jumping into the commercial markets right now, or in the industry markets. Changing legislation, forcing you to change your processes, applications, and infrastructure to meet those legislations, and the constant globalization. And then internally, we see that organizations demand more agility and flexibility for their employees. There's a constant pressure to reduce operational costs, innovation, and the reduction of legacy and complexity. And all those things combined result in a constant pressure to change. And if we want to change, how do we want to do it? Well, the first thing is we want to do it fast, because there's so much pressure that we want to do it in the most efficient way possible. We also want to do it controlled and safe. And that's often what you see goes to the background. If it needs to be done fast, we just change, but we don't check if it's safe, if it's going the way we want it to be. And then last but not least, we want to maximize the business impact. So we don't want to be working very hard and very efficient, but be working on the wrong projects, because then we are wasting our efforts as well. But how is it generally done within organizations? So what we see is that it starts with setting corporate objectives. So that is basically the C-level executives, the management teams, they go into the organization, they collect project proposals. Those proposals are then worked out into blueprints, of which the costs, value, risks are determined, and they are then prioritized. And then we go to the build phase, where we describe the current situation of a specific project. We define the future state of a project, and then we execute the change of those projects. That all sounds really good, but there are some problems in that, and actually quite a lot. So by setting the corporate objectives, we first want to know, okay, how can we actually contribute to those corporate objectives? When we work out project proposals, we don't want to just ask people which projects we should do, but we want to do data-driven analysis. We want to have impact analysis on what we're going to do. What are the places in my organization that actually need improvement? Where are my weaknesses? And then when we start determining the costs, value, and risks of our projects, we constantly stumble upon not having accurate insight in how our company currently works. So what is the current state architecture? Also disallowing us from spending our resources in the best possible way to achieve our objectives. And then once we get to the build phase, there's been doing a lot of strategic works. There's a lot of documents and assessments that's being done by the enterprise architecture team, by the C-level executives. But then we see the project teams or the agile teams, and they look at those documents and they feel like they're being slowed down. They have all these policies and rules and guidelines that they have to deal with. They have these complex tools that they need to work in, and they just don't want to do it. They'd rather just create a fast drawing and start working and start building stuff to execute. So what is our solution? Agile business transformation. And agile business transformation focuses on radically opening that transformation process and making it collaborative and data-driven. And that starts with defining your business goals. That doesn't change. But then we want to map out the capabilities and see how they contribute to those business capabilities. And capabilities are then best described of the things that you need to be able to do as a company to reach your business goals. So let's say that you want to have 20% of your revenue from online channels, then you would need an online channel capability. But in order to analyze our capabilities, we would need to know how they are built up. And in order to know that, we need to see, okay, which processes, applications, data, and maybe even infrastructure are realizing that capability for doing online sales. Once we have that information in place, we can assess the capabilities and we can identify our strengths and weaknesses. And if we do that, we can start creating a high-level transformation roadmap. So which capabilities do we need to newly build in the future state? Which capabilities do we need to improve in order to reach our goals? Because there are currently a lot of weaknesses in there. Once we did that, and that is typically the role of the enterprise architect, we create the blueprints and the baselines for the future state processes, applications, and data. But we are not going to make those solutions, because those solutions, they need to be made by the project teams and by the agile teams. And that is where we prioritize the projects on business impact, and we utilize all the current state that we already analyzed to find our strengths and weaknesses. And we use that to build the best solutions for the future to better fit their capabilities, to better fit those business goals. And if we get this trick under control, and the project teams can actually color the processes, applications, and data in the future, we actually get a cycle in which you're constantly analyzing your current state in a data-driven way, then define where you want to head towards, using that future state to create projects, and then using that current state to fill those projects with information and then communicating it back. So you get a continuous cycle of transformation that goes so much faster than without this cycle. So we help organizations to do that. But how does that work? How do we get all that information to get the data-driven insight? That's the question. Well, for that, we have designed multiple solutions, and those solutions are often already implemented at most of the companies that we come across. So, of course, there is enterprise architecture management. And enterprise architecture management is very much about directing the business. But then, to direct the business, we do need insights in that current state architecture. And the current state architecture is often already captured within business process management, application portfolio management, data management, technology management. These are the things within the business that from an operational level manage the portfolio of assets that you have. And then the project and portfolio architecture is much more focused on designing and monitoring change. So how do we get from point A to point B? And this is very closely related to your existing project management practice. This means that there is virtually no information that currently doesn't exist that you would need to set up transformation management. Because enterprise architecture translates strategy into objectives. Hopefully it's already doing that, and otherwise this is a great moment to start that up. They then create and assess current state capabilities using industry standards that they can reuse, and they design the future state capabilities, high-level scenarios, and very importantly, they design the policies, principles, and guidelines that we want our processes, applications, data, and technology to align with. And that's what they do, and then they facilitate collaboration. So they are not running around to completely map out that current state. That's not the job of an enterprise architect. They should be focused on strategy and on helping and on facilitating collaboration. But when we can get to optimizing the current state, we want to work with the people that actually have the knowledge on that current state information. And that is where business process management come in. So think about your process management department, think about your risk and control department. They're already mapping their process landscape. They want to optimize processes and customer journeys from a very specific perspective. They align processes with risk and compliance guidelines. Same goes for your application portfolio. There's people working on that application portfolio. Think about your functional application management, your technical application management. Maybe you even have an application portfolio manager in place. And they rationalize, they assess applications on costs, lifecycle management, technical quality. They want to know the functional fit with those processes that they support, align those applications from a risk and compliance guidelines perspective, and harmonize landscapes after M&A. So they need to be supported to do that, but we want to utilize their data again. And the same goes for data management, where you collaborate with data managers, data architects, and to facilitate master data management and data lineage. And your technology management, think about change management, infra management, ITIL, where they are already mapping the technology estate to do impact analysis and to execute on their changes. They do their life cycle management, their impact analysis. So all that information on the current state is already there. We just need to align it with that enterprise architecture. And once we get there, we can start working with the Agile teams, with the solutions architectures, and with the project teams, because they have a project management tooling with a lot of information, and we can help them to manage that portfolio of projects, giving them all that information about the current state, giving them the information where we are head towards, and that will allow them to design the project current and future states, and to assess the project impact on business goals, to assess the impact on the current state. So they are not siloed in their own project anymore, but they're actually part of a bigger context. So what do we need from a central repository then? Well, firstly, obviously, it needs to facilitate you to capture your business goals, capabilities, processes, applications, data, infrastructure, and projects. But that's not enough, because we don't want to spend hours and hours on documenting the current state. So that is what we call just enough architecture. Administer just enough to meet the goals that these people already have. So if you're working with a functional application manager, ask them, what do you want to know about your application? And that is what you facilitate them in capturing. If you want to work with a risk and control department, facilitating them on doing the risk and control checks on their processes, and not more than that, because you want all these different insights. And then once you have those different departments aligned, let them collaborate and recycle information. Connect the information from your risk and control department to your functional and technical application management, to your data architecture, to your enterprise architecture, and you will fill your repository with information. And that will result in more and more information. And what we can then do is we can integrate with all those existing tools that you have in your organization, ingesting and normalizing even more information, filling the repository more. And we can collaborate with all those other people in the organization that might have a little bit of information in their heads, and we can just pull them straight away into the central repository. And this will help you build a central repository with information that we can then visualize into architecture models, into process models, and into data models that will help these people to do their daily works on a data-driven way. And of course, we can report on that with a native integration to facilitate our leaders with the insights that they need on where are we heading and where are we currently standing. And with this, we can support all the solutions. And that is very nice to say, but I think it's even better if we can show it to you how this actually works. So I can imagine you're curious. And this is the point where I want to give the word to Tom, and he is going to give you a very short demo. Keep in mind that it will be high level because it's short, and we definitely invite you to proceed us after the session if you want a little bit more information. Thank you.
Thanks, Jelle. I will show my screen now. Is it visible? Jose, can you check for me if it's visible?
Yeah, looks good, Tom.
All right, thanks. So thanks, Jelle, for this for the introduction. So here we are inside of the tool Blue Dolphin, which is, like Jelle said, it's a software as a service web browser-based tool. I'm running this in Chrome or Edge. So the first thing you want to do when working with Agile business transformation is getting to know where you are in terms of architecture maturity. So one of the things we do when implementing this tool is we start you off with the Blue Dolphin Architecture Maturity Assessment, which is a guided set of interviews that we take using Typeform as an integration that will ask you, your organization, a couple of questions about architecture in general, where you stand, and then we use that information to determine your maturity level. Now, depending on your maturity level, you can start in different ways. One of the ways you can start off with is by just going top down, as we are showing here. So if you look towards Agile business transformation within the tool, you'll see that we have a couple of things to do. So from directing the business down to your current state, down to projects and portfolio, down to your future state, everything that you need for this architecture practice is basically in this tool. Let's start off with vision and business goals. So we're talking about a fictitious pharmacy today here, which has brick and mortar stores and wants to move to an online presence to start selling online products. So they've set up a couple of goals, which are architecture goals. So for example, they want to increase total revenue. They want to get a lot of that revenue from online. They want to move towards online shopping. They want to move towards delivering at home. So they've set out to go to a couple of goals that they've set out themselves to do. And as an enterprise architect, this is important because this is where you determine the direction of the strategy that you're going to take. So in order to fulfill these goals, you also need to take a look at how the business operating model canvas is about. So a business operating model canvas, some of you might know this form of describing your organization, is about the value chain. So what is your most important value chain in your organization? Who are the outside people? Who is your suppliers, locations, your customers, your channels through which you are selling products or services, your revenue streams, your cost structure. So everything is inside of this single business model canvas. As an enterprise architect, you're not doing this alone. You're getting information from your stakeholders, from your C-level executives, from your process owners, from your application administrators. So that's what you use to combine these views. So once you establish your goals, you establish your business model canvas, you can start looking at your current state capability model. Like Jelle said, your current state capability is all about what is your organization capable of doing in order to fulfill its mission and the goals that you have set out to do. Now, since this is a store, so it's a bunch of stores basically, the important thing is that there are capabilities here which are relevant for the things that this organization does. For example, they have warehouse management because they have distribution centers. They have store management because they have a couple of stores which they need to manage. They need to manage the transportation going from the distribution centers down to the stores. They manage orders, they manage procurement. So any organization will have a capability model which may not look like this one, but surely you'll have one that that makes sense for your organization. And also, this is a great way to communicate with your C-level executives, with your business, because it's most likely that capabilities are easy to understand for the business people. Another thing we need to do is, because we have these goals that we want to achieve, we want to know where those goals are impacting our capabilities. So let's highlight that here. So what I've done here, I've highlighted the goal of moving towards online shopping on top of the existing capability model. This means that these highlighted capabilities need to be changed in order for us to achieve these goals. Obviously, you can also plot all of the goals on top of that, obviously, but you can also pick out one of these. So when you want to start analyzing your current state, because you need to change these capabilities, we are going then forward into things like processes and applications and data. So let's go back and take a look at our process architecture, for example. So here's the very easy process architecture that this organization has. And what we can do here is, because we have analyzed the processes and analyzed the capabilities, we can actually plot the capabilities on top of the process architecture. So here we see the business processes that are supporting the capabilities. And also you can do pickpocketing here. You can pick certain stuff here. So let's say that you're interested in sales. So there's business processes supporting sales, or maybe other business processes. And you'll see across the board which capabilities are supported by which business processes. Obviously, we can also skip down to a BPMN level, which we'll not show you in here, but that's also doable, but goes beyond the scope of this session. So looking at processes, looking at applications, what is interesting about applications is that applications tend to have a lot of information attached to them. And that is a great way of visualizing that information is in Blue Dolphin, where you can have unlimited amount of object properties that are kept with each of these objects. For example, here we have trivial stuff like names and suppliers and descriptions, but also financial information, contract information, information about the ownership of the application, who's the functional and technical administrator, where it's used, which department are using the application. All this information can be inputted inside of the tool. It can be inputted not just by the enterprise architect like Jelle explained, but also by your application admin, your process administrators, and everybody that has knowledge on these applications. So we really want you to collaborate with stakeholders on creating that or making the current state architecture easier to maintain and to be inside of the tool. You can also use sources to create this information. So this product can easily connect to your existing sources, for example, your finance application or your CMDB, and get data from that source and use that to create objects and create information for these objects, and also create relationships in the model. The third way of getting data in there is by using a guest link. And basically that is sending out a questionnaire to somebody inside your organization, asking them to fill in information on this particular object, for this case, this application. And that information is then handled in the tool, so you can leverage that information inside of here. Speaking of leveraging information, once you have your current state in here, you can do analysis on it. For example, you could take a look at where applications are hosted. So you could really go into storytelling here, like, hey, this is my application landscape, and here are my applications running on premises. And here are applications running in external data centers. Or maybe there are already applications running as SaaS applications. So same thing, you can do the same thing, for example, by connecting it to business processes. So connecting that means that you can say which applications are actually contributing to the business process of selling products. These ones. Or maybe managing projects, or managing finance. So by having this current state architecture, not just made up by the enterprise architect, but by collaborating with different stakeholders, you can build up your enterprise architecture current state, even when existing practices already in place, like Jelle explained. For example, we have application portfolio management, which you just showed. We have data management, project management, or business process management, which are all separate, maybe separate practices within your organization, but they can be combined and governed using enterprise architecture within this tool. So looking at application portfolio, jumping back to that, this information that I just showed you can also be interpreted using different types of reports, like Jelle explained. So for example, here we have a Power BI report, which is drawing information from our tool, Blue Dolphin, to create dashboards that may appeal to your other executive or other stakeholders. For example, here we have applications mapped per location, or incidents versus changes, which is combining data from the enterprise architecture current state and also information from the CMDB. Here's monthly cost per application, getting information from our contract management system, all inside of the product. And here, an end of license model, outlining, for example, all the business critical applications that are about to go end of license. So you can easily see where you need to take action on certain applications, because you might need to renew contracts or maybe phase out applications. Let me go back. I'll go back here. Wait for my screen to pop up. Okay, here we go. So information can be ingested inside of the tool, doing analysis, using models, using reporting. Now let's take a look at also as a part of the process architecture. The architecture is the technical architecture of the current state. So obviously your infrastructure, your servers, your cloud services, your database is also important. Similarly to the other objects, we have information coming in these objects from external sources. For example, here's a list of nodes or servers. This data is ingested through the use of an inventory tool. It can all be done inside of Blue Dolphin. And you can also have analysis on this. Because, for example, plotting applications that are supported by servers on top of a view. So you can quickly see what applications are supported by what servers. Now, to put a little bit more perspective in here, you can also make that viewable through, for example, a lifecycle management dashboard, where we have information on system software, which is running, which is used in the organization up top, servers that are used, applications, and capabilities. So what we could do is we could check out one of the capabilities and see where there are applications impacted, and what servers are they running on, and what kind of system software they are running. So from top down, from a capability level, you can drill down way to the bottom to your system software to see if there's any issues hitting your capabilities, for example, based on, for example, system software that is going to be end of life. Obviously, fueling all this information is the model itself. So if I go back to the application portfolio, and I jump in one of these applications, it will show me a detailed view of these applications. For example, here's a solution architecture for the application Blue Yonder, which basically shows you applications that are connected to this application, the way it supports business processes, where it is located, and also what kind of infrastructure is supporting that application. This information can also be visualized, for example, by creating by connecting it down to capabilities again. So, for example, we have calculated in the Agile business transformation, we've calculated a business risk per application. That business risk is calculated through answering a couple of questions within the object properties for every application. We can then leverage this to show that information in here. So here you'd have a list of all the applications and their business risk. Obviously, a higher risk means a higher score means a higher risk. This is determined by questions that we answered here. But the nice thing is that because it's a connected model, you can also take a look at this from a capability point of view. So from a capability point of view, we'll see that the warehouse management capability is a capability which has a relatively high score. So let me draw that back. So it's on red, meaning that these two applications are immediately something that you could take a look at to take action on, because for this capability model, it's easier to go to a couple of capabilities than go through all your applications and determining what you need to do there. So once we have your current state capability in place, what we then need to do is obviously we need to check this against changes that we want to do in the form of projects and portfolio, and the current business goals and principles that we have set up before. So if you take a look at the business goals and the principles, you'll see policies here, enterprise architecture principles, business process principles, application integration, data and technology principles. This is part of your framework. This is part of why you can do just enough architecture, because you have established a framework in which you are referencing your current state and future state architectures against. Going to those projects, you want to go from your current state to a future state to attain your goals. Now, we have created a couple of projects to create these. For example, online web shop, which is outlined in time. It has a start and ending time. It's integrated with our Agile business practice. This is connected to, for example, our Azure DevOps link, which we use for Agile software development. It is connected to information about the project, regarding budgeting information, regarding deliverables, program owners, when will it start, when will it end, all information that can be either put into the product itself or gotten from a project management tool. The most important thing when looking at just enough architecture is that as an enterprise architect, you want to know what changes are being made to your architecture that do not break the current principles. So you want to get a view on the deviations and mitigations that you're doing based on the project architecture. So if you take a look at the project architecture, for example, for applications, you'll see that on the left side, we have the current design, the current way applications interact with each other. And on the right side, we have an envisioned architecture, which outlines the introduction of 3 new applications. It also introduces new integrations between applications. And because we have based this on a baseline, we can easily say, hey, this is conforming our current state or current principles and policies, or deviates from them. If it deviates, we'll note them, and we only have to draw up the future state architecture and not the entire current state architecture again, because that's already inside of the tool. We can also dig deeper here. For example, if we want to look at the link here, we'll see, for example, a quick view of what the integration between these two applications actually means. So having these project designs in here and knowing that you have control over your deviations and your mitigations that you've done on certain principles, that you have all your current state and future state architectures inside of the product and have a full view of what is about to happen, makes that you can also do project portfolio management. So once again, as your dashboard, you can have tracking and project timelines on all of your projects. You can have estimated budget information about the timelines, but also, are your projects contributing to the strategic goals that you have set? So for example, here we see that all goals contribute to move towards online shopping, but only a few goals move towards your online revenue. So these kinds of insights are parts of project portfolio architecture, which you can also use use in the product. Going back to our current state architecture. So we've seen vision and business goals. We've seen the operating model canvas. We've looked at the principles that we've created. We've looked at our current state, process, applications, and technical architecture. We even skipped data models, which you can also do. Then we move towards project and portfolio, making sure that the changes that you do contribute to to changing your capabilities that need to be changed because of goals. And then once you are in the future state, your future state becomes your current state, and the cycle will start all over again, just like Jelle explained earlier. That was my presentation currently. I will stop my sharing now.
That is terrific, Tom. Wow, lots. I'm looking at the comments here. Lots of useful information and lots of questions that have come in. So thank you for that. The one of the very a bit of basic question, but I think it's an important one. And I think I know the answer, but I want to make sure that you share this with the audience. All the graphics that you presented here and on your demo, they are native to the Value Blue platform, Blue Dolphin platform, right? These were not created in multiple applications.
No, they're native. You're looking to this inside of the platform, inside of the web browser, inside of Blue Dolphin. Yeah, true.
Terrific, terrific. That was the question. Quite impressive how much you have developed in the platform. And so one of the I'm looking through a number of the questions here. There was a kind of different themes that have emerged. First one is related to maturity model. You talked about the maturity model in assessing where your customers stand with respect to organization maturity across their enterprise. If you can talk a little bit about that, is that a proprietary thing that you're using? Or using industry maturity models? What type of maturity model are you using in assessing your customers' organizational capabilities?
I can answer that. So it's based on industry standards. So we look at all the TOGAF standards, also Gartner research articles, and then we based proprietary questionnaire based on that. And what it basically does, it checks the different maturity levels that we have defined for each solution that we support. So for example, for enterprise architecture management, application portfolio management, process management, and it looks on what level you would be if you started implementing Blue Dolphin. So are you maturity level 3? That means that you have applications in relation to your capabilities and you know something about lifecycle. We check for that, and that helps you to quickly implement the product because you exactly know where you are at your roadmap, and we can directly help you to move to the next maturity level.
That's very, very, very helpful. So William Fuller is asking a question related to the project portfolio architecture, and he's asking if you can give a little bit more, share a bit more detail about that project portfolio architecture. Is it focused on project change and implementation management? What is the project portfolio architecture, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, so the main goal, sorry, you want to answer that, Jelle?
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, one of the main goals of project portfolio architecture is that obviously you need projects in your organizations to drive changes. So changes in projects can be used interchangeably. That's how we see it. So the project is used to drive the change. So for example, by connecting projects or project objects to your enterprise architecture, you know where changes are going to take place. You know the people that are involved there. You know the impact on the architecture itself. You are able to connect them to current state and future state architectures, and then by adding them or connecting them to goals or maybe drivers and stakeholders, you're able to compile a list of your projects and take a look at your projects from a higher level portfolio perspective. So, for example, am I doing the right projects? Am I doing projects which only contributes to one goal out of the 5 I have? or is my portfolio more, more diverse than that? So that's one of the goals that we have with project portfolio architecture.
I think an important addition to that is that it differentiates from project management, because project management is bringing one project from beginning to end and actually executing it. And it differs from project portfolio management, because project portfolio management is assessing your portfolio of projects and mainly assessing them on costs. And what architecture adds to that is allows you to design your project. So it's basically the guidelines that you give to your project management teams that work in the project management tools. And that's why we strongly integrate with existing project management tools like Jira, or for example, or Microsoft Projects. And it gives more context to your project portfolio management. So you can not only assess them on costs, but you can actually see how they impact your architecture and your business goals. And that allows you to do, for example, scenario analysis or for impact assessments.
That's excellent. Carrying on here, I want to get to as many audience questions as possible. Next one comes from Hernan Jaramillo, who is in San Antonio, Texas. And Hernan comments and asks, first he says that you provide an excellent process and tool structure for organizations which facilitate their operations. Do you also provide a statement of work to address the recommended roles and responsibilities that speak to the review and approval of the architecture itself, supporting the Agile process? So his comment is that the assumption is that organizations may not have a congruent internal process that supports an Agile process. And I'll tag on to this question on the, this is related a bit to governance, right? How do you do the appropriate governance for this? And there's the chicken and the egg type of thing. Do you set up a governance structure, or you implement the right tooling, and then how do you ensure that this Agile process that's being done is aligned, and aligned with the strategies, and then and what type of governance structure really you have to make sure that that's working well?
Great question, thank you. So to begin with your last question, do you start with the governance or do you start with the tooling? I think the two of them, they go hand in hand. So a fool with a tool is still a fool. So meaning that if you don't have good governance, the tool is never going to fix that for you. You have to discuss in your organization, how are we going to do architecture? Who is responsible for giving approvals? Who decides if we're going to change something or not? But facilitating that without good tooling and giving your approval workflows via Excel files and via Visios, in which hundreds of people are working on different models that are not integrated, is never going to work. And it may then seem that you have a bad governance model while you actually don't have the tooling to support that governance model. And yes, we can definitely help you to set that up. We have a fully worked out standard governance model that helps you to get Blue Dolphin, a convention model and a governance model at the maturity level that you're currently at. So if you're low maturity, it's a very, very small governance model with a limited amount of people involved. And then we modularly grow that. If you're already more advanced, we can implement a more advanced governance model. And I think that's the key to governance in general. Build a grow model where you start small and become bigger and bigger, and give authority to the teams working in your tool. So let them make as many decisions as possible. We do have standards, but I also realize that standards don't work for every organization. So we have a lot of opportunity to tweak and optimize it for your own organization. And we work with a lot of partners, large consultancy firms that we collaborate with to set up those governance models if you need customs.
That's quite interesting, that discussion. I'm sure we can spend a lot of time on just that discussion between governance structure and tooling. You have shown some tremendous capabilities here, which require quite a bit of collaboration in the organization to make this work. We only have about 30 seconds here. How you successfully engaging the right stakeholders in the organization for that collaboration to be effective? If you can have, that's always a challenge for EA. what are some of the tips you have learned are useful in engaging the right stakeholders?
I think the most important thing as an enterprise architect is actually facilitating collaboration, and that means setting up your framework, your governance, and your tooling in such a way that it helps people to do their main job better. So it should not feel for them like they are helping you to do your job better, but you are helping them to do their jobs better. So that means that if you have a technical application manager, he wants to click on one button and see the complete technical architecture of all the applications that he is responsible for. And then you can ask him, hey, can you also add a little bit, contribute a little bit of information to this model as well? Or can you check if this is right? And that makes it easier. Don't ask them to do everything and only consume. Help them to do their jobs better, and then get the returns that you reap what you sow.
Very, very well. We had lots of questions. I want to thank the audience for tremendous engagement. I apologize, I'm not able to get to all of them, but this clearly has instigated a lot of thinking. You presented a lot of great capabilities here, so thank you. I hope this to be one of many sessions to come related to what you're doing in this space, which is quite impressive and unique. So congratulations on the journey, and thank you again, the audience, for the high level of engagement. Tom and Jelle, thank you again for taking the time to share your expertise and insights with our global audience today.
Thank you, Jose. It was a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Likewise. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom de Ruyter and Jelle Visser, directly from the Netherlands to the world, really showing some very interesting capabilities that Value Blue is implementing for enterprise architecture. We are going to be wrapping up the session here. The recording will take place so that you can have a recording of the session later on. We'll take a short break, and when we come back at the top of the hour, we'll come back with leaders from Mega International discussing the use of composability to drive flexibility, speed, and resilience. So looking forward to that presentation at the top of the hour. We'll wrap up here. You can provide your feedback as you close the session on things that work for you and things that you want us to do better. You can check on LinkedIn what people are saying about the conference, what the speakers are saying. If you have comments, additional questions, we're going to be posting updates. I placed the link under in the chat. You can also look under my name, Jose Perez, and you see the link on LinkedIn. And I also want to remind everyone that is registered for this conference that our next conference will be the Digital Transformation Workplace. So there will be announcements about the dates and how to register for that conference under the chat. So thank you for now. Take a break. I'll see you back at the top of the hour with Mega International.